What's up guys, this is going to be the start of my deck profile week. I'm going to be doing a deck profile on each of the new rulers Monday through Friday. Today's is going to be on Friend from Another World Kaguya. This is the one I played at my tournament yesterday and I split for just like top two. I was really hungry to go eat and I decided I'd just rather, it was with me and a friend, so we just split the prize, and fourth place actually was someone who recently just got into the game. He's one of my friends that also come to CoreTCG, and he literally just learned how to play the game a week ago, and it was like only like a 12-person turnout, but he got top 4 and he played me in top 4 and he was hungry to go eat, so he left too. But regardless, whichever one of us actually ended up winning that match, it would have been this deck in top 2. And I think it had a really good matchup against my friend who also got the other second place player. So I think it does really well. He was playing Shion and it was kind of a close list anyway. I made him the list and it's kind of inspired by this deck. And so it's kind of a deck that revolves around Alice World. Not Alice World, the card itself, but kind of that whole engine. Mostly like full credit of this deck should really go to Adombrali. He's the one that originally made that deck that kept topping all the AGPs that all the Forcible Tavern people were using. A lot of people see all those players topping, and a lot of credit doesn't really go to him, but it really should, because Adombrali is the one who made the list originally. So I don't want to accidentally not give him any credit or forget to mention that. So this is like heavily inspired by his build. I just kind of added cards from the new set to it that I thought would work really well with it. But yeah, definitely shout out to him for making such a consistent and great deck. So starting off with just the ruler, we have Friend from Another World Kaguya. Her G-activate cost is Light, Moon, and Colorless. The moon, of course, is like a recurring thing we have from Moon Princess Returns, which is the third set, and Grim, but they kind of wanted to revive it and add to it in this set. I think that's actually a really good idea, because I've said this when Millennia of Ages dropped, but Forcible tends to add support for older things instead of just kind of releasing a lot of new stuff and forgetting about the old stuff. Millennia of Ages was kind of like support here and there for some of the old stuff, and this set seems to be doing that with Moon, and I like that quite a lot. Of course, it kind of fits in with the lore as well, but generally I like the idea. Her effect is whenever a moon enters your field, you may draw a card. There's only one moon I play in this deck, and it's Tsukuyomi, the Resonator. I don't think using like Bloody Moon or Pale Moon or any of the actual moons is worth it. Even the new, I think it's like Holy Moon of something. It's like a white and colorless. I don't really like that card either. But yeah, I think drawing off of Tsukuyomi is really great. And then her main effect of why I decided to run this version of the deck is you may spend Moon as though it were green. Please note that that doesn't mean just your moonstones, it means just any moon. So if you float Moon with Moonbreeze Elf, you can also use that as green. For anyone that knows the Alice World core, it's very like familiar of Holy Wind, Morgiana, Moonbreeze Elf, well originally Elvish Priest, but now Moonbreeze Elf. So having access to green is very important. And then the original version of the deck used Reflect as a ruler, and they had Ruler's Memoria and Change the World. But that version I think suffers if it go against Lapis, because he slows down your Regalia use. But Reflect was kind of forced into using it because he needed Ruler's Memoria, which made like the mana base perfect. But I feel as though because of her turning Moon into green effect, you're able to use stones like Moonshade and keep your stone lineup as consistent as you can without suffering from having the need to use Regalia. Because I kind of anticipated Lapis being a big deck, and although no one was playing it at my tournament yesterday, I still think he might kind of sneak in, and once people really realize how to use him, they might end up using him more often. And I think just in this meta, you have to be very safe with the Regalias you use, and I don't think Apollo offers enough to use in this deck. The earlier J-activate cost, I think, isn't technically worth kind of just taking up those 4 slots and opening with it, just to like kind of not have as many uses in your hand. So for the stone lineup, I have the 4 Moonshades as I mentioned. This is the most important stone in the deck. It lets you produce any color as long as you pay 200. But if you pay if you pay it as green, you wouldn't have to pay anything because your moon is also green. I have 3 Moonlight. This is also a stone that most people don't use, because if you hit this first churn, Moonlight says that it copies the colors of all your other stones. So if you hit this first churn, you don't have any colors because it's your only stone, and therefore you have nothing to copy, and it only produces Moon. However, in this deck, if you hit this first churn, you still have churn 1 Moonbreeze Elf, you still have Morgiana, you still have Familiar of Holy Wind. There's still so much you can do with just hitting this stone. And the second you hit a Moonshade, you now have 3 Moonlights that are going to copy all of the Moonshades, and you have 7 stones of any color without needing any Regalia or relying on Ruler's Memoria, which I think is also extremely strong. And then 3 of the new Moonbreeze Memoria. The reason I don't run either 4 of the Moonlight or 4 of this one is because this one only produces Light and Moon, which of course means Light, Moon, and Green with Kaguya. And Moonlight produces all the colors, but I wanted to have more Moonshades than either of these just to boost my probability of seeing it, because even though these stones are really good, I don't want to hit them consecutively. I mean, if you hit 2 of these, your turn 2 play can't be a Cheshire anymore. You can't go for like a Gwiber, because typically if you want to do turn 2 Gwiber, you would do something like tap your first stone for Moonbreeze Elf, and then your second turn, let's say you hit a Moonlight and your first stone was a Moonshade, you would go use the Moonlight for Cheshire, and then like use the Moonbreeze Elf for like Familiar or whatever, and then like use the one remaining stone for Gwiber. So if you hit 2 of these in a row, or this and Moonlight, or 2 Moonlights in a row, you don't have access to blue, and it slows down the Cheshire. But I typically try to mulligan for heavy green just in case that happens anyway. For the Resonators, I run 4 Moonbreeze Elf. Typically, I don't know if I've actually mentioned this in older videos, but in most decks, if I run a ramp engine, kind of like an Elvish Priest or something, unless Reflect is the ruler, which means, you know, you could just like put it away with his first effect, I don't like running 4 of it. I feel like 4 gets really cloggy. But in this deck, not only do you draw enough to kind of make up for it, but at the same time, Moonbreeze Elf can't be attacked, and it plays a huge part in how good it makes this card. It makes your Fiethsing so much more live because you can always drop them safely, tapping this, not thinking it's going to get attacked or anything. If they waste a Thunder on this card, it's totally fine because it's a 1-for-1, and you can even float the mana and do something with that turn if you really wanted to, as long as it doesn't have Summoning Sickness, of course. It just produces Moon. That Moonbreeze Elf's effect is to tap itself to produce Moon, and you can use that Moon as green if you have Kaguya, and this card can't be attacked. So it's kind of the main engine to get things going. It also really helps once you J-activate Kaguya, you can use this to pay the cancel effect on Kaguya's effect. So it's really, really good. I'll go into that more later too. I'll explain why I really like the Adombrali's version and why I adopted it. But there's also 4 Cheshire Cat. This is probably the only really expensive card in the deck. One of my friend that I said that used this list in top 4 made this deck, and he just got into Forcible like a week ago. This was like the only expensive deck he bought. I think the deck in like the lowest rarity cost him like, I think it was like right at $200. It was like $195 or something. So I think $200 for a top tier deck is really good. Not to say that there isn't going to be other decks that are good. I don't want to like, it's new to the meta, so I don't want to be like, oh, this is a top tier deck. But I had really good practice with it, and I've been practicing for it for a while on Untap as well. And so I'm really confident with how it performs. For Familiar, this is one of the cards I normally like seeing only 3 of 2, but because like I said, I need heavy green in the early games just in case I don't hit those stones right, I like having 4 of this. Plus it never hurts. It's like not a bad card by any means. It just it works really well on its own. Familiar, of course, draws a card when it enters the field, and your whole idea is to drop a bunch of 1-drops that replace themselves, so that when you drop Gwiber, you didn't really lose anything. 3 Morgiana. The way Morgiana works, I want to go over this card because I do see a lot of people talk about it in the groups. Morgiana lets you replace every instance of draw you have with checking the top 3 cards of your deck and putting 1 in your hand and 2 in the bottom instead. That means if you have this card on the field and you summon Familiar of Holy Wind, you check the top 3 cards of your deck, pick one of those cards, it stays in your hand, the other 2 go on the bottom. If you summon Cheshire Cat, you would check the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand, put 2 on the bottom, check the top 3 cards of your deck again, because it's for every instance of draw, so Cheshire draws 2. So you would check the other 3 again, so that's 6 cards you've gone through, put 1 in your hand, put 2 on the bottom, and then resolve Cheshire's effect to put another card on top. So 2 cards end up going, well, 2 instances of cards go on the bottom, so it should be a set of 4, because it's 2 and 2, and then 1 goes back on top. You make sure you don't accidentally put the Cheshire card on the bottom as well, or put the Morgiana cards on top, because it does really ruin everything. And there's a lot of people that get judge calls on that in actual like AGPs and stuff, because it does happen quite a lot. When I was the head judge for the Pasadena event, that actually was called out quite a lot. For Adombrali, I think Adombrali is one of the best cards in this entire game. I think this card is just absolutely insane. So Adombrali's effect is every time, to summon it, you can incarnate and you can tribute 2 of any colors. And unless you tribute 2 of the same color, then you can't double up on the effect. but as long as you tributed 2 different colored Resonators, you gain different effects. For light, you heal 400 life. For fire, you deal 400 damage to a target Resonator. For water, you draw a card. For green, you produce any mana except for moon. And for black, your opponent loses 400 life. So what makes this card so good is if you have Familiar of Holy Wind, let's say Morgiana and Cheshire, and you haven't gone into a Gwiber, and the let's say Morgiana had entered the field that turn, or it's an instance where if you get rid of 2 cards for this, it's not any of the 2 cards that apply towards Gwiber's reduction effect, because for anyone that doesn't know, Gwiber loses 2 cost for every card that enters the field this turn, but those cards must stay on the field. So if you were to tribute them for this, they no longer are on the field, so you would have needed another card that entered the field, and then of course this still enters the field to make Gwiber's cost lower. But what makes this so good is you can choose how the effects go into the chase, and so you can choose to draw the card first and then apply the mana if you sack a blue and a green. And why that makes it so good is because if you go into this and you have a Morgiana, you check the top 3 cards of your deck because it's an instance of draw, and if you sack a Cheshire, your deck gets shuffled. So if you've been like mulliganing or putting stuff on the bottom with Morgiana, it kind of resets it, so if you've put Gwibers away, you still have a really high chance of seeing them. And so you would draw 3 cards. If you see a Gwiber, you add it to your hand, put 2 on the bottom. Even if you're tapped out of mana, you use his effect to produce light, and then you just play the Gwiber for 1. And I think that play is ridiculous. There's also a lot of things you can set up with fields in this, but I'll get to that later as well. The next creature is of course 4 of Gwiber. This is the main win condition of the deck. You want to summon this either on turn 2. This is what makes this is where I'll go over Kaguya because I think it's really important. The reason why Adombrali's list works so well and why it did so well in 2 different AGPs is because a lot of people didn't notice how important Robe the Fire Rat was in that deck. Robe the Fire Rat wasn't so that they can just stop the aggro meta because there was a lot of land slots in that format. It was mainly because if you're playing a Gwiber and they just go Susanoo and it kills your Gwiber, they can punish you really heavily for it. But Robe the Fire Rat protects Gwiber, and it's one of the main reasons of why that play is so strong. If you just willy-nilly like just summon a Gwiber, it's very sensitive to getting destroyed, and it just kind of leaves you with the 2 1-drops that you had on the field or the Adombrali, and it doesn't really like kind of make up for its summon. So you always want to make sure that before you summon Gwiber, you're fully protected. So either there's 2 options that I go for, well I guess 3 options. Either you can go with the first turn Moonbreeze Elf play and then summon a Gwiber on turn 2 so that they're barely tapping for their second stone on their turn, which means even if they had access to a Susanoo, they won't be able to play it. Or you can kind of play the control version of this deck, which is, I don't run any counter spells, but Kaguya on this side, it says, it might be a little blurry, you might not be able to read, but I'll try to go over it. But it says, you may spend Moon as though it were green, so this side has the same effect. And then whenever you awaken a card, put 2+1/+1 counters on this card. That's only relevant to 1 card in this deck, so it's not that important. And then play Moon, cancel target automatic ability. An automatic ability in this game is an effect that either is like an enter effect or an effect that's a continuous effect that checks for a trigger. So a card like Rugeg that says when this card is sent to the graveyard, blah 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 blah, you can negate that. If somebody summons a Susanoo and it's when this card enters the field, well that's like an actual bolded enter effect, but it's the same. It works the same way for this as those do. So if they summon a bold enter effect like Carmilla or Susanoo, you can negate those with 1 moon. Her other effect is to pay 1 white and 1 colorless to prevent the next damage to this card. I really like this effect as well because you can use it as a blocker. A lot of times people that try to sneak in damage and have Kaguya on the field, knowing I could just block that attack, and then if they try to summon something else, I can just cancel the automatic ability. It makes me feel really, really safe. And then her God Art is to pay 1 light, 1 moon, and 3 colorless to tap all creatures your opponent controls, and then you recover all your stones, and then Awakenings cost 1 less. Once again, I don't really play any Awakenings in this deck except for Tsukiyomi. I didn't really think it was worth kind of going into them too much, but I really like the fact that this can protect Gwiber. You never want to play the Gwiber without protection unless it's on turn 2 where you know they can't follow up with the turn 3 Susanoo. So I like the concept of either playing rush them down really quickly before they can respond, or control the board late game and then they can't do anything anyway. 1 Speaker of Creation. Speaker of Creation searches out another really important card in this deck. I'll get to it when I get to the card, but it can also pay 1 light to destroy Field Edition, and I like being able to destroy Barrier of Shadows. And the one I use is the Wind-Secluded Refuge, which once again I'll get into later. And yeah, this card searches Field Editions just when it enters the field. So if Wind-Secluded Refuge is really strong, and I'm assuming people are going to start using it as well, and so I want to have a kind of a main deck answer to not only search that but to be able to destroy it as well. To Hera, I think Hera is really strong in general, but it doesn't feel as good as it used to because everything can kind of leave the field in this meta. If you go against the Kaguya deck and they happen to be running the Regalia, it could banish itself to bounce a Resonator they control to the hand, so your Hera misses. You still force them to make it leave the field, but you don't get to draw the card, which makes it a little weaker. But I know the second I remove this card from my deck, it's gonna like come in super handy, and I'm gonna play against a player that has like a bunch of like Death Sights or like Maribels or just something on the field that I'm gonna want access to destroying and drawing off of. And with the way I mentioned how Morgiana can just put cards on the bottom, I never really had this den in my hand. Maybe like there's like one scenario where I think I played yesterday where I was kind of just like stopping in my hand Hera, but I originally had 3 and I cut it down to 2, so I think that would solve the problem anyway. And then 3 Tsukiyomi. This card is absolutely insane and just makes people so angry. And I mean, I hate to like that, but it really does. This card is a myth and a moon, and its effect is players cannot play activate abilities on resonators they control unless they control a moon. And because Tsukiyomi itself is a moon, like its actual type is moon, she applies for this effect. So essentially you don't have to control anything but herself in order for her effect to go off. So they can't use any activate effects. They can't tap for mana if they have like an Elvish Priest or a Moonbreeze Elf. They can't use Gwiber. They can't use any card that requires a Resonator to rest, or is something like kind of like Kaguya's pay 1 moon to cancel an effect. That's also an activate. It wouldn't stop Kaguya because she's not a Resonator, but just in general, if a card says like, you know, pay this to do this, it stops those as well. And then the second effect on this card is you can awaken it by paying 1 more moon on its original summon. So it would cost 3, just 2 light and 1 moon, to destroy a target Resonator, a target addition on the field, as long as it's a non-moon edition. And if you destroy it, she gains 2+1/+1 counters, making her a 7/9. So you get a 3-drop 7/9, which is pretty strong. You destroy one of their cards, and then because this card is a moon, you have to not forget that Kaguya's ruler side says when a moon enters the field, you draw a card, and that applies for this as well. So the way Hera destroys a Regalia and lets you draw a card, it's kind of like a +2 because you drew a card and you took out one of theirs, so they lost something and you gained something. That's what Tsukiyomi is for additions. You get to destroy the addition and then draw a card, so they lost their addition and you got to draw a card, and now they have to deal with this big body as well. So Tsukiyomi I think is really good. It was just a little bit cloggy at 4, so I cut it down to 3. And then 3 Fiethsings. Normally I don't think the Alice World deck ran Fiethsing, but I actually like it a lot because it helps me kind of how I said I want to play the grind game sometimes with Gwiber. Having Fiethsing on the field helps me deactivate but still keep my moon open to be able to cancel stuff, so I like access to it. Plus, this card is really strong against Persea. If somebody attacks with Persea, which I didn't have to play against someone that was using... I played against someone using Persea, but it was like a Machina deck, so it didn't really focus on Persea, and there wasn't like Red Rush in it. But in a Red Rush deck where Cthulhu's are 5/5 and Persea's are 7/4, if you drop Fiethsing and block, even though it has first strike, since it doesn't get to kill Fiethsing, since it prevents Persea's damage, you get to just respond, and the attack goes through and it takes 500 and dies. And then because last known information was that Persea's damage was prevented, the 500 won't go through when the second effect on Persea that says when this card is sent to the graveyard, your opponent takes 500 damage. That won't apply either because you prevented all damage from Persea. Last known information was it couldn't deal damage. So I think Fiethsing versus Persea is really strong, and it helps with my judgment cost, so I like that a lot as well. And then I added a 1 of Bedivere over that 1 Hera I said I took out. Bedivere I think is actually really good right now. I was originally citing 2 of them, but I kind of really wanted one in the main. Shion is extremely popular at my locals, and Arthur is like the most annoying card to deal with. He's just extremely strong, and I like having a main deck answer to be able to just remove it from the game. It also works really good against people that are using Gwibers as well, and I also figured it'd work really good against Gil Lapis, because if I'm playing against Gil Lapis and they take one of my Gwibers, I could just summon this and remove it from the game, and it kind of like replaces the fact that he took my card, and I think that's really strong. Like I said, with the same situation like with Hera, if I really don't want to see it, I can get rid of it. But I think people are actually running a lot of beaters this format that are over 1,000, and I think this card is actually really good main. So I might even end up bumping it up to 2. But for right now, when I tested it with just at 1, I felt totally comfortable with all the draw that I would see it, and it felt totally fine to just side the other one. So that's the Resonator lineup. I don't have much spells in this deck. There's Foment of the World Tree. This card, a friend of mine that was running the Shion deck I told you that got split with me for first. He runs 2 of these in his list, and he likes it more at 2. But I felt like 1 was fine. And then the friend that was using this exact list, it was either 2 of these or 2 Sign of the Futures, and I decided between 2 Sign of the Futures. He just played a 41 card deck with 2 of these, and I gotta say, sometimes I do want more of this, but at the same time I don't. But this card is absolutely insane. There was so many times where I had Morgiana on the field, and I would play this card, and what it does originally is it's 2 green, and it's a chance, so you can't do it on instant speed, but it never really mattered actually. And you get to put any amount of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, so essentially mulligan, and you draw that many cards plus 1, so it even replaces itself. You lose absolutely nothing, except for the fact that you have to tap out on 2 green. And then you also gain 800 life, which actually is a huge amount of life. It almost makes up, like if that was your turn, if you locked yourself out on even like let's say turn 2 by using this card, and you're just setting up for next turn, whatever damage you're going to take from your opponent next turn that early in the game is just what this healed anyway. So it's like you lose a turn, but not really. And in late game, you have more mana to do everything with Adombrali anyway. But being able to have Morgiana on the field and play this card, even if you put like 3 cards away, so you're going to draw 4, you go check the top 3, add 1 to my hand, 2 on the bottom. Check the top 3, 1 to my hand, 2 on the bottom. Check the top 3. Like you literally just go like Cheshire, Gwiber, or something crazy. And like every single time I use this card, my hand just became flawless if I had Morgiana on the field. I literally had like the instant comeback or the Sign of the Future if my opponent had overextended. Just everything I ever wanted was given to me through this card, and I might actually consider playing more, but one seemed pretty good. And then 2 Sign of the Futures. Sometimes I wish I had 3 of this. Sometimes I wish I had 8 of this. Sometimes I wish I had just like 40 Sign of the Futures because it's really annoying to go against either the mirror match or any deck that's kind of like the same concept of like little weenies and then like dropping something big, or just a bunch of little weenies and not having access to this. I might bump this up to 3, but I know the second I do, I'm gonna see it like infinite times, and then they're gonna have like 2 Resonators on the field permanently. So even if I just block with everything and had nothing on the field, I won't be able to use this. Sign of the Future is a standby, but for any of the new players coming into this format that don't know this, spell chant standbys can be used from your hand as a spell chant instant as long as you meet the trigger requirement and you pay the color cost. So if you want to use Sign of the Future as a spell chant instant, you just pay the 1 white and 1 colorless, but they of course have to meet the trigger requirement, so they have to have 3 more creatures than you do, and then you just remove from game 2 of them. And or you can of course just set it as a spell chant standby for 2 void, but I think that makes it too obvious. It's really good just to keep in your hand as an instant, because this card is ridiculous. Like just being able to remove 2 of their Gwibers if it's like the mirror match and they have 2 and you don't have as much going on, you just remove 2 of them. You take out 2 of the 4 main win conditions in their entire deck, which is really, really strong. Against rush decks that go like Lancelot, Cthulhu, Persea or something, you can remove the Persea and the Lancelot. That way the Lancelot can't get buffed in the future, and the Persea doesn't do damage because she's removed from game. It doesn't send it to the graveyard. So this card's just absolutely insane. I think it's like one of the best cards in the entire game as well. 2 Wind-Secluded Refuge. This is what made me want to play this deck originally. I didn't want to main Robe the Fire Rat like Adam Reiser does, because of course in that format they were using Reflect and they could just put it away, but having like 3 of a card is kind of a lot. And but it was fine for them of course because they had Reflect, but in Kaguya I wouldn't want to do that, so I decided to play 2 of these instead of 2 of the Robes, because I still main 1 Robe. But what this card does is when it enters the field, you draw a card, so it sets off Morgiana as well. And then when a spell or ability your opponent controls targets a J Resonator you control, you can banish this card, and if you do, you cancel that spell. So what makes this so great is if your opponent's Sign of the Futures you cancel the entire spell, so it doesn't only protect 1 creature, it would protect both. if they Flame of the Outer World, Flame of the Outer World says that your opponent can't chase to this card, but the way this card works is every single time your opponent uses a card, this card automatically goes into the chase, whether you're doing it or not. It just always checks that card and goes into the chase, and then you have the right as a player to apply its effect and cancel it by banishing this card. And so it doesn't, you're not particularly chasing to Flame of the Outer World. This card automatically does it for you. You as the player are just choosing to cancel the spell. So this actually does work against Flame of the Outer World as well. So if anyone tries to like double Flame Kaguya, they can't do that either. Space-Time Collapse is, Space-Time Anomaly is a really big card as well. It does minus 500 to a card and its Remnant. And if you do it on Kaguya, it resolves. Do it again on Kaguya from the graveyard, she just dies. And being able to protect from the Remnant version that they use from the grave is really, really good because this protects J-Rulers too. And this is the same concept I said. This is the third method I was mentioning with Protect the Gwiber. So early on, if you set this up, you can even set it up kind of for free with Adombrali. There's so many times where I have Gwiber the next turn after I can set this up, where I do something like tap Moonbreeze Elf to produce Moon. Of course, I could use that Moon as green. And then sack it and let's say Cheshire Cat for Adombrali. Produce just another green or whatever color I want, use the Moonbreeze's color and the Adombrali's color to play this card for free because it's just one green, one colorless. I draw another card, and then I have like a good, Adombrali in the field is like a 6/8. So even if that's early game and they summon like a landslot on their turn 2, you're still totally safe. You could just block it. And then on my turn 3, if I just go nuts and summon like Cheshire, like a double Gwiber or something, depending on if I have more Adombralis or whatever, they can't do anything on their next turn because I have this on the field. It completely protects it, not only from Susanoo, but from Space-Time Collapse, from just stoning to death. Anything that they can just randomly drop on the field that's too early removal, it just protects it. And that's like you guarantee getting at least 1200 in. And if anything, if you still have a Morgiana on the field after you set up the Gwiber and they use something to make you force sack this, you can go through your deck so quick the next turn that you can easily just set up another one or use Speaker and search for another one and play it. There's just like infinite options. Like a lot of the times I was using this deck, I was able to go from having like one Cheshire, one Morgiana, and one Familiar of Holy Wind in the beginning of the turn to having like 3 Adombralis and 2 Gwibers, and I only have like 3 or 4 stones. So this card I think is insane. I think it's actually going to see a lot of play once people realize how good it is. And the only thing I think I see wrong with it, or the thing you have to be wary about, is in the mirror match, if they use Tsukiyomi, they can destroy this card. So that's kind of something you have to be careful about. But what I was explaining to a friend that mentioned that to me as well was if you set up a whole field of like Gwibers and you have this on the field and they use Tsukiyomi to destroy this, it's more likely that they had to tap out to do so because Tsukiyomi would cost them 3, or even if they do have like a couple mana left over, they can't now Susanoo or do anything else. And if they're using their turn to destroy this and gain like a 7/9 Tsukiyomi, it's still fine if you have like 2 Gwibers because you're still attacking for 2400, let alone setting up your next turn. So making them have to destroy this is just as good as this protecting Gwiber, because whatever you do, you can easily have them destroy this and then play Kaguya next turn, and it's like, okay, great, you destroyed this, now enjoy not being able to destroy Gwiber because I'm just going to seal you down with Kaguya anyway. So there's just a lot of setup you can do with this, and it's really, really strong. And then one Barrier of Shadows, I like having just one of this still because I feel like the same concept with Hera. I feel like if I take this out, I'm going to regret it so much, and I don't use it as often as I wish I could, but I just end up putting it away if I really don't need it. But I think it's decent in the mirror match too, and it really stops Shy on a tad because she kind of like, if she can use Hydromonica for 1-2 freely, she gets kind of crazy. I didn't think she was going to be that good, but she's actually really good and really annoying. Like, I like the deck, but I don't know, it's like there's something about it that's like, it makes me feel like a little too overwhelmed and it's kind of upsetting. And so I'd rather just stop her from doing stuff crazy and stacking all of her Arthurs and whatever and putting Arthurs in the field, because I'm starting to hate that card. Like, if I don't have the Bedivere or the Sign of the Future and they drop Arthur, I just get really frustrated. There's just nothing you can do against it. And she can like essentially J-activate and do that quicker than you can J-activate and negate her, because you both cost 3, but hers activates on enter and you have to pay for your cancel. So she's kind of faster than Kaguya in a way, and it's really frustrating. I never get to negate her enter effect, or if I J-activate early to try to do so, they go crazy with their like Gwibers and stuff too. So Cheyenne's kind of a hard matchup. It's a pretty fair matchup, you just have to know what you're doing. And so this kind of helps with that. And then Robe the Fire Rat, I still main one. Like I said, I don't think it was bad that they mained it. It was just easier to put the extra copies away with Reflect. And I still like one because it works really well against rush decks. It also helps to protect Gwiber from Susanoo. So most of the time, if they're not playing red, I just end up infinitely putting this away with Morgiana. But if they play red, it helps you set that up too. So it doesn't hurt by any means. I kind of really like having this at one no matter what. Lastly, for the side deck, I have 3 Angel of Wisdom. This card is actually really insane. It's like one of my favorite cards that got released because it makes me feel so safe playing this deck and not worrying about rush decks. This card has 5/5 flying, so it's already like not bad. And then its effect is you can awaken it for 1 moon, and when this card enters the field, you destroy a target fire or dark resonator, and it gains 2 +1/+1 counters. So it becomes a 7/7 flyer for 3 drop, which is really good. And it destroys like any fire or dark card, which I think is even like crazier. Like you could destroy a Persea, you could destroy a Cthulhu, you could destroy a Lancelot. It just adds so much tempo, and because it's flying, when you side this in against those decks, now they have to worry about taking all this damage with Adombrali because 7 and 6 is pretty strong, and now the Gwibers. And if they take out the Gwibers and you're still attacking for 6 and 7, it's still really, really good. And I really like what this card offers. I didn't play against any rush decks yesterday, so I wasn't able to like really use this to its fullest. I don't think I sided it in, but I feel really good with having it in there. And then 1 Bedivere. This is, like I said, I originally had 2 in here and no Hera, but I put this in instead because I really like having the option for it. I think 1,000 and higher monsters are really seeing this format, and I want to have answers to them. For Apollo, although I don't like this card mained, I don't think this card is bad-sided. It's more likely that when your opponent sees you're not running Regalia, they're going to remove their Heras and Barriers if they're maining them as well, and then you can side these in to try to catch up. Why I like this card is if you play something like the Mirror, or if you play against those rush decks, it can pay the Awakening cost for Tsukiyomi for their additions, and for Angel of Wisdom to destroy their cards, and it lets you kind of, you can sack this card to add a card to your hand, and so you can add Adombrali back to your hand and keep going crazy with him. And normally that gets stopped by like Gil Lapis or anything like that, or Barrier of Shadows, and you don't want this to get like Herod or anything. Even if you can respond by bouncing something, you might not always want to do that. So I liked having it sided because it kind of lets me go. I get to overextend freely in the game 2 and 3 if they don't see this coming, instead of just being able to not use it at all. So I liked it sided, but I didn't want it mained. And then 3 Seal of Wind and Light. This goes into the more control version. If you end up wanting to play Protect the Gwiber, but you don't want them to go crazy with their cards anyway, just in case they're kind of going faster than you, which is typically really hard unless you're playing a list that's close to it, but it is possible. My friend's Shion list is like I said, like almost exactly like this deck, so it is possible that they can just do the play faster than you can, especially if they go first. And if you side these in, you kind of slow them down a bit. Don't let them get their Adombralis off, because negating, that's the most important. And then of course, when you awaken this card, they can't respond. And if you awaken this card using Apollo, it's free. So I liked having access to counter spells. 2 Portal of Truth. This card I think is nuts even without Reflect in the meta. A lot of people were using this with Reflect, sorry about that, because you could +2 their card and just kill it. But I have this card against Shion players because I really hate when they use Arthur. I think it's just really strong in general. It also worked against Machina because he was using Magic Screw. I think just in general, like you see a lot of monsters getting buffed here and there. If people are using Kaguya and they have like Awakening counters on their Tsukiyomis, you can take care of those as well. I just think this card's really good. It destroys any monster with attack and defense that's not the same as their original attack and defense. So being able for them to go tap Arthur to like give it 800 defense, and they have like a 2000 that you have to attack into, and you go, that's fine, like Portal of Truth. It just feels really good. So I like having access to this and Bedivere for those kind of plays. And then lastly, for Gil Lapis, I have 1 Glimpse of Kaguya sided because Glimpse of Kaguya stops activate effects, and you can stop his God Art. God Arts are of course activates as well, so it works against that. And then on the off chance that he goes faster than me and the 1 Glimpse of Kaguya isn't enough, I also sided 1 Dream of Juliet. Why this card is good, it says you can bounce, you can flicker a card, which means you remove it from the field and put it immediately back in the field. This triggers enter effects of those cards, but only if it's the new enters, not the ones that have the bolded enter. So if you do it like on a Hera, you get to destroy an addition again. But most importantly, why I like this is because if they Gil Lapis and they take your Gwiber from your deck and you flicker it, it goes back into your field because it says the controller's field. So if they steal one of your Resonators, you get to flicker it back into your field. If they take an addition like a Wind-Secluded Refuge and a Gwiber, I can destroy the Wind-Secluded Refuge with this and then Bedivere the Gwiber. It just gives you a lot of options because it destroys additions and it flickers a card, and that I think is really good against Gil Lapis. So that's the entire side for the deck. So thanks again for watching, guys. If you guys do have any questions or suggestions, make sure to leave it in the comment section below. I try to slow down my talking a little bit. I know a lot of people say I talk really fast. There was probably still certain scenarios where I did do that. It's kind of habit and I can't really control it. I'm trying my best not to do it though, so let me know if it's better now, if you guys were able to better understand the plays, and if the deck profile did help you. I want to have suggestions from everyone on what I can do to improve them. Typically, a lot of people do respond really well to the deck profiles, but if I can improve in any area, I might as well ask. You never know, there's always improvements you can add, so that would mean a lot if you guys can let me know that. If you guys need to buy any of the singles, I do still have the promo codes in the description for CoreTCG. I think the prices there are really fair. I'm really not just saying that because I work there. Anyone that comes to the shop and meets me knows that like I'm not one of those people that are like, I have to sell stuff to you. They're not like that kind of company anyway. They're very just like, we believe in setting fair prices, and then that way people like buying from you because you're fair, and then you make client base anyway because of that. So I really think that you guys using those promo codes helps you guys, if anything. I really don't get anything from those, by the way. I don't know if anyone might be under the impression that like if I do that I get like a bonus or anything like that. I really don't. Like, it wasn't even their idea. They've never asked me to do any promotional stuff in my videos or anything like that. It's not like some people get like Ultra Pro to contact them or something, and then they ask you like to do stuff, and it's like really cool that they do that. I think those are really cool because like I think YouTubers should have more opportunities, if anything, because we do put a lot of work into these. But just for the heads up, like it's never been like a promotional thing. I literally tell them like, oh well, yeah, I'll mention this because if people can get free stuff with their cards, why not? Like when they did that sale and I was telling you guys to get like the cheap Cheshires and stuff, like they weren't going to put those cards up, and I was like, you guys should, like why don't the Force players get more stuff, so it's never been anything like I don't get paid extra for that or anything like that. I just do it because I like helping you guys out. So you check the description for the promo codes if you guys need singles. It's just extra stuff, top loaders or like Scorepads if you guys need to keep track of live. So it's nothing too big, but it's the best I can do. And then if you guys do have any questions, let me know, like I said, and subscribe to the channel to see more deck profiles. I have Primogenitor coming tomorrow. Cheyenne will be Wednesday. The Yggdrasil tree will be Thursday. Originally he was going to be Friday, but I want to play Arsonist this for Sunday because I've been saying I'm going to play him. So I'd rather do that on Friday so then I can just take it with me on Sunday and not have to re-sleep the entire deck. So sorry, Arsonist players, you're going to have to wait till Friday, but it'll be worth it because I'm testing a whole different version of the deck to make sure what I saw from yesterday's meta applies to that deck as well. And then Yggdrasil tree will be Thursday. So let me know what you guys think, subscribe, and I will definitely catch you guys next time.